Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez. The last video was a bit of a rant talking about some guy that shouldn't even be allowed to enter some of those printing forums even as a guest. Their sole job is to just make people angry. Anyway, somebody asked this very deep question, and it's one that confuses a lot of people. They don't know the relationship between pixels and image size in whatever dimension measurement you try to use, whether it's metric or English inches. There is no such thing as a 8 by 10 inch print. It's only pixel dimensions, okay? So many pixels times so many pixels. And then you pick a PPI, or pixels per inch resolution. In other words, think of pixels as little mosaic tiles. If you go to Europe and you enter one of those grand cathedrals they have in Paris, Notre Dame for instance, you might see a mosaic on the wall or a mosaic on the floor. And if you stand far back enough, it looks pretty much continuous tone. But as you start getting closer, you realize that, wait a minute, these are irregular pieces of clay tile that have been glazed in certain colors so that you create the illusion of an image of somebody or a portrait of somebody's face. And so the closer you get, the more you realize that these are actually pretty large pieces of ceramic tile that have been glazed. So think of that when you think of a digital image. Let's pick a very simple size. 100 pixels times 100 pixels. What size image is that? Well, it's 100 pixels times 100 pixels. It's not inches, it's not centimeters, it's not anything. It has no size. How big is a pixel? A pixel can be any size you wish it to be, okay? Literally. So, say for instance, if I wanted to make with that particular image 100 by 100, if I wanted to make a 2 by 2 inch print, well, I have 100 pixels to work with in the vertical direction and 100 pixels to work in the horizontal direction. So X and Y, 100 by 100. But I want to make a 2-inch print. So I would have to take those 100 pixels, stretch them digitally on my screen so that they span 2 linear inches. That means that every inch will be composed of 50 pixels in 1 inch, and then 50 pixels in the following inch times the same. So each square inch of that 4 square inch print would contain 50 times 50, okay? So do the math. I'm terrible at math. So do the math and you'll figure that out. Now, that same 100 by 100 can be printed as a 1-inch square print. That means you would have to pack 100 pixels into 1 inch. What if I wanted to make a 10-foot by 10-foot print? I could. Each 10 feet, each foot would contain 10 pixels. So a square foot would contain 10 by 10 pixels. And those pixels will be pretty big, okay? Whereas in the smaller print, they would be very small. So pixel size is a variable, okay? And pixel number does not change. So if you want to resize to other sizes, you would just have to use less pixels per inch. And when you do so, you basically enlarge the size of that little tile, that little picture element, which you can picture it in your mind as being a little mosaic tile. So the more pixels you have in that mosaic, which is your print, the more detail you can pack, assuming that your lens was able to produce that level of detail. The more pixels you have, the more you are apt to be able to reproduce or display the resolution of your lens. Very few pixels, I don't care how sharp your lens is, okay? you will still not be able to reproduce the massive amount of detail that the lens could possibly produce. So you have to have a balance between the lens capability of producing detail and the number of pixels per linear inch that you are able to then use for printing. So if you have 3,000 on the height and 4,000 on the horizontal, then you can divide by, say, 300 pixels per inch, and you can figure out how many inches of print length and width you would have at 300 pixels per inch. Now, 300 pixels per inch, you can even see the pixels with your eyes. At 10 pixels per inch, you would have a poster big enough to be a billboard on the highway, and the pixels will be about that big each. Okay, so pixels do not have size. Pixels do not have size, remember that. And so basically you just take whatever the native resolution of your camera sensor, whatever it may be, so and so times so and so, you divide by, say, 300, and that kind of gives you your maximum number of inches if you print in inches, and the width in inches as well. And you should be able to get an idea close enough of how large a print that particular file can produce at a normal everyday 300 pixels per inch. Now, a lot of people can get away with 150 pixels per inch. That will give you a print that is twice as big as the one you can produce using 300 pixels per inch. So it's as if I gave you a box of tiles and one of them contained inch square tiles, and then I gave you another box of tiles, each containing 1/8 inch square tiles, but each box contained the same number of tiles. With the 1-inch tiles, you will be able to create a mosaic that is quite large using that particular total number of tiles that I provided you. With the other one, with the finer resolution tiles, which are only 1/8 inch square, you would only be able to make a small mosaic. Okay, so this one with the 1-inch tiles contains, say, 10,000 pixels. This one with the 1/8 inch diameter tiles contains 10,000 pixels. Same number of pixels, but they are different sizes because that's how you figure out your PPI. Okay, when you print, you only worry about PPI when you are laying out or editing on your computer and you're about to send that to the printer. You may have a file loaded on your screen that contains 450 pixels per inch. Well, when you send that out, you want to convert it to 300 for Canon and 360 for Epson printers. Those are the native resolutions for those printers. And you might end up with a print that's actually much larger than you intended to make. Well, if that's the case, you can go ahead and resize it down to whatever size you want it to be at the end and have it resample the number of pixels so that you end up still at the correct number for the particular printer you're using. Now, the drivers will do that for you automatically, but the purist wants to go ahead and do that themselves manually. So that's how you would go about doing so. I plan to do a video where I will visually show you on the computer what I just tried to describe verbally, which is probably kind of hard to grasp. And it took me a while before I actually got it, kind of. So again, remember, pixels do not have size. That is one of the questions that, a photography teacher in school will ask you. And you kind of go like, huh, wait a minute. I really don't know. Yeah, because pixels do not have size at all. So you deal with the number of pixels. One direction, the other direction, and that's it. All right. Thank you once again. Please subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.